The quality of your relationships is what determines the quality of your life. And the bonds and the connections that we make with other people, that we establish with them, gives us a greater sense of meaning, of happiness, of well-being than any other human experience. All of you have grown up needing both security, safety, and adventure, exploration. And if you think about how that enters into your relationships, in a couple, there is one person who is more in touch with the fear of losing the other, and one person who is more in touch with the fear of losing themselves. One person more afraid of abandonment, and one person more afraid of suffocation. Reconciling security and adventure, reconciling love and desire in one relationship has become one of the great challenges. For the past 35 years, I've been helping couples and people navigate the challenges of relationships. And until not too long ago, there was no such a thing as a couples therapist. Basically, you got together with somebody, you married, and that was it. You were stuck for life. If you didn't like it, well, you could console yourself with an early death. It was till death do us apart, not as we have it today, as till love dies. Never before has the survival of the family depended on the happiness of the couple. And this has made the couple such a central unit. Also, the unit of relationships that is probably undergoing the most changes in a very short amount of time. Never have we invested more in love, and never have we divorced or broken up more in the name of love. I imagine a world in which we can experience our relationships with a sense of vitality and aliveness and vibrancy, because I live with one perennial truth. The quality of your relationships is what determines the quality of your life. And the bonds and the connections that we make with other people, that we establish with them, gives us a greater sense of meaning, of happiness, of well-being than any other human experience. Relationships at this moment are undergoing such a massive shift. The norms are literally changing under our feet, and we have to make up the rule book as we go. You know, for a long time, our relationships were pretty simple because they were dictated by rules. Religion had clear strictures, and social hierarchy was also very clear, and it told us how parents had to talk to the kids, how children had to respond to adults, how husbands had to talk to their wives, and how wives didn't have to answer their husbands. All the decisions were made for us, the big decisions. Who was going to be the breadwinner? Who was going to wake up at night to feed the baby? Who has the right to demand for sex? What you did is what your father did. And at this moment, we have unraveled this system, and we have created a world of options and choices and unprecedented freedom. But as a result, we have to negotiate everything. It's all up for grabs. It's no longer clear who's going to be the breadwinner. In fact, whose career is going to take priority at this time? Who's going to wake up tomorrow morning to feed the baby? Who's responsible for initiating sex next time? Who's going to plan the date? What gender should I be dating? How many people should I be dating at the same time? Should I tell them about the others? Am I ready to have children? Do I even want to have children? Should I move east? Should I move west? Where am I going to go on vacation next? Are my needs getting met in this relationship? Am I happy? Am I happy enough? All these big decisions that have burdened the selves like never before, we have to figure it all out. And because of that, conversations have become the heart of relationships. We have to talk about stuff that we've never talked about, that we don't know how to talk about, that we don't have the vocabulary to talk about, and most of the time we've even never said it to ourselves. This shift from the collective life, where we had belonging, but very little freedom, to where we have a lot of freedom, but everywhere we talk about relationships today, we hear about the fact that we no longer have a deep sense of anchoring and belonging and rootedness like we used to have, and that we are facing a modern massive epidemic of loneliness, which in America today has become the #1 public health crisis, more than obesity. A few other major changes took place. In the old model, when marriage was primarily an economic enterprise, intimacy had to do with sharing the life together. You milked the cows, you watered the land, you raised the children. It was about economy. But today, when I talk about intimacy, I talk about it as into me, see. And what I bring to you is not my dowry, it's not my commercial assets. I bring to you my inner life. I bring to you my wishes, my feelings, my aspirations, my anxieties. And when I talk to you, I want you to look at me. Know this. I want contact. I want connection. I want you to make me feel that I matter. I want you to reflect and validate me. And I want to transcend this life of growing atomization. I also want you to help me, or to help together actually, achieve what is probably one of the most amazing challenges of relationships today. This is where we want to bring under one roof contradictory ideals and contradictory needs. On the one hand, our need for security, for rootedness, for belonging, for anchor, for predictability, for safety, and on the other end, our need for adventure and novelty and change and mystery. Every living organism straddles this polarity between change and stability. Every person, every relationship, every company. And thriving relationships are the ones who know how to reconcile these two fundamental sets of human needs. If you think for a moment, all of you have grown up needing both. Security, safety, and adventure, exploration. And some of you may have come of your childhood needing more protection. And some of you may have come out of your childhood needing more space and autonomy. And if you think about how that enters into your relationships, you will notice that very often in a couple, there is one person who is more in touch with the fear of losing the other, and one person who is more in touch with the fear of losing themselves. One person more afraid of abandonment, and one person more afraid of suffocation. Reconciling security and adventure, reconciling love and desire in one relationship has become one of the great challenges. We today, when we look for that person with whom we want to have everything, we that person the soulmate. Have you heard of the soulmate? How many of you think that you're looking for a soulmate, or have found a soulmate, or are living with your soulmate? You know, the thing that really interested me about the soulmate is that it's called the one and only, all of that. But the soulmate was an interesting concept because for most of history, the soulmate meant God, not another human being. And in our secularized society in the West, we have basically taken romantic love to replace the role of religion many times. We look to our partners to give us transcendence and meaning and ecstasy and wholeness, all these things that we used to look for in the perfect world of the divine. But the way we're looking for this soulmate is mired in a romantic consumption economy. I am going to look for the one and only through that thing where I have 1,000 people at my fingertips. What does it mean to look for the one and only in the swiping culture? In the village, you had 2 choices. Later, you had 6 choices. Now you have 1,000 choices. Do you know what it means to meet the one? The one means that this is the one that's going to cure you of your case of FOMO. When I find you, I no longer think I could do better. Phenomenal. We have very few guidelines and a lot of options. And all these options are giving us quite a bit of uncertainty and quite a bit of self-doubt as well. When we talk about sex, which is really an enormous series of changes that have taken place in relationships. First of all, there are 3 primary sexual revolutions. The advent of contraception, without which women could never experience sexuality, women and men could never experience the freedom of separating sex from reproduction. The women's movement, which took on the abuses of power, and the gay movement, which introduced the concept of sexual identity. For most of history, sexuality was seen as a part of our biology. Today, we have socialized it. It is a part of who we are, of our identity, of how I see myself, of how I express myself. It is a sovereign piece of who I am, and for that matter, it has become a fundamental human right. We no longer just have sex for reproduction, neither is it in long-term relationships or in relationships that are with some length, and it is no longer just a woman's marital duty. Today, sexuality, especially after 2 kids, if you have 2 or 3, which is the average Western thing, it's basically for pleasure and connection, no other motive. So it better be good. Because in order to want sex, it needs to be sex that is worth wanting. This is really a major shift, to have sexuality that is based only on my wanting, which is the definition of desire, is to own the wanting. And hopefully I want you and you want me, and it happens to be at the same time. It's a lot of conditions to fulfill.